years ago, I found this little treasure in a used book sale. I Promessi Sposi by Alessandra Manzoni. I had heard that this is a major literary work in Italian literature. All Italian school children are required to read it, and it takes a year of school time to read this book. But if it's so important, why is it so thin? This is an abridged version of the first 8 chapters. The text is in Italian, but there are notes in English. Well, this is perfect for me and my 4 friends that I met in Italian class. So I showed it to Diane, and Ardit, and Gilda, and Jane, and we all decided to read the first 8 chapters of the Promessi Sposi. I paid $1 for this little book, and when we opened the book, our adventure began.
Quel ramo del lago di Como che volge a mezzogiorno tra 2 catene non interrotte di monti, tutto a seni e a golfi, a seconda dello sporgere e del rientrare di quelli, viene quasi a un tratto a restringersi e a prender corso in figure di fiume, tra un promontorio a destra e un'ampia costiera dall'altra parte.
Well, it wasn't easy, but we stuck with it, and pretty soon we found that we fell in love with the characters, the story, and with Manzoni. It all begins in the town of Lecco on Lake Como on the evening of November 7th, 1628. Don Abbondio, the local parish priest, is walking on a deserted path towards his home when he notices up ahead 2 strange young men who seem to be waiting for him. They approach and ask him if he intends to perform the marriage of Lorenzo Tramaglino and Lucia Mondello the following day. Questo matrimonio non s'ha da fare, né domani né mai. This wedding must not take place, not tomorrow, not ever. And then they give him the regards of their patron, Don Rodrigo, the local nobleman, a tyrant who is feared by all the humble people in the town. Don Abbondio is terrified. He promises to obey the command, and he runs home. Poor Don Abbondio, what a terrible night he has. Such bad dreams. In order to save his own skin, he must convince Renzo not to marry Lucia. Next morning, Renzo arrives, all dressed up in his best clothes. After all, it's his wedding day, or so he thinks. What time should he and his bride arrive at the church, he asks. Don Abbondio says, oh, there can't be a wedding today because I'm not feeling well. Renzo doesn't believe this. So Don Abbondio says, the wedding can't take place today due to some formality that has been neglected. Renzo is confused and frustrated, and he wants to know when the wedding date can be set. But he senses that there's something more to the story. He loses his patience and he demands the truth. Finally, Don Abbondio tells him about the threat of Don Rodrigo. Meanwhile, Lucia is at her house with her mother Agnesi and other women preparing for the wedding and waiting for the bridegroom. Renzo arrives, but he asks to see Lucia privately. When she sees the expression on his face, she knows something is terribly wrong. Anxiously, he tells her that the wedding is off because of a mysterious threat of Don Rodrigo. Santissima Vergine, chi avrebbe creduto che le cose potessero arrivare a questo punto? Who would have believed that things would come to this? Sobbing, Lucia tells Renzo and Agnesi what happened. One day, as she was walking home from the silk mill, Don Rodrigo approached her and made some inappropriate remarks. In fact, that nasty old Don Rodrigo has his eye on Lucia, and he made a bet that he would conquer her. Lucia was so frightened, she told only her confessor, Fra Cristoforo. He advised her to hasten the date of the wedding, stay out of sight of Don Rodrigo, and pray. Renzo is furious with this news. He wants to confront Don Rodrigo. He wants to climb that steep hill to Don Rodrigo's castle, but fortunately, the women calmed him down. And Agnese convinces him to go to Lecco and see a lawyer instead. She gives him the 4 chickens that she was saving for the wedding banquet as payment for the lawyer. The lawyer, one Dottor Azzecche Garibulli, listens to Renzo's story, but he really isn't paying attention. But when he realizes that the case is against Don Rodrigo, he throws Renzo out with the 4 chickens. Who will help Renzo and Lucia now? Fra Cristoforo tries to help. He climbs the steep hill to Don Rodrigo's castle and confronts him. He accuses him of persecuting an innocent young girl and threatens the revenge of God. But that arrogant Don Rodrigo will not be intimidated by a monk. He throws him out and vows that he will get Lucia anyway. Meanwhile, back at Lucia's house, Agnese, Lucia's mother, thinks of a scheme to trick Don Abbondio into performing the marriage. All they have to do is declare their intention to marry before the priest and 2 witnesses, and technically, the marriage will be valid. Lucia doesn't want any part of this because she's so honest and good. But Renzo sees it as a way to solve their problem. Once they're married, he says, they can run away to Bergamo and live happily ever after. So Renzo convinces Lucia to go along with Agnese's plan. He gets his friends Tonio and Gervase to act as witnesses in this matrimonio a sorpresa. That night, Renzo, Lucia, Agnese, and the 2 witnesses go to the house of Don Abbondio. With the excuse that they are there to settle a debt, Tonio and Gervaso are allowed in by Perpetua, the housekeeper. Agnese just happens to walk by at the very moment and starts to gossip with Perpetua to distract her away from the open door. Waiting in the shadows, Renzo and Lucia sneak into the house when they're sure Perpetua won't notice. They tiptoe up the dark staircase to the room where Tonio is talking with Don Abbondio. Poor Lucia, how her heart is pounding. Finally, when the moment is right, Renzo takes her by the arm and suddenly they appear in front of Don Abbondio the priest. Renzo declares, in the presence of these witnesses, this is my wife. Don Abbondio is stunned, but he realizes what they're up to. Quickly, he grabs the table cover and throws it over Lucia so that he won't hear what she's about to say. Then he runs to the window and yells, "Aiuto, aiuto! Help, help!" This wakes up the bell ringer, who sounds the alarm. Renzo, Lucia, and Agnese run away to avoid the townspeople who have come out of their houses to see what's going on. They run to Fra Cristoforo. Oh, he's so happy to see them. He had heard that Don Rodrigo was planning to kidnap Lucia, and he had already made arrangements for their escape and safe refuge. Lucia and Agnese would go to a convent in Monza, and Renzo to the monastery in Milano. And so, on the night of November 10th, 1628, the would-be bride, groom, and mother-in-law left their beloved town of Lecco to escape the tyranny of Don Rodrigo. With heavy hearts, they boarded the small boat and crossed the lake, and by the light of the full moon, They looked back towards their village and said, addio.